You do. I don't know.
Hello, I'm Robert Moynihan in Rome, Italy, and I have the pleasure on June 25th, Wednesday, of talking once again with Father Charles Murr. And how are you, Father Charles?
I couldn't be better and still legal, Robert. I'm just fine. And you look great. You look like a little boy with that haircut. It's fantastic. It's shaved 20 years off you. It's good.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess maybe I should go for your haircut.
Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. It'll take care of itself. It'll come when you least expect it.
All right. I first have a kind of note about a sort of film and television matter, which is a film called The Chosen. It's a series on television in America, and it's about the life of Jesus. And it's become, it's got Protestant evangelicals who are mostly talking about Jesus and the Gospels and bringing them to life, but quite a few Catholics have started to watch the program. And a number of them were here in Rome this week, the people who are making this film. And I thought I would share my screen.
Including our Blessed Lord? Was he there?
Yes.
Oh, very good. And how is he?
Well, here he is. I'm going to share the screen here.
Did you speak with him? The actor, what is his name? I can't remember it.
Jonathan Rumi.
That's it.
There, do you see him there? Can
I
you
do.
see that?
Yes, I do. I do see him.
So that's at a press conference in the Vatican on Monday. And Monday afternoon, they showed the 4th episode of this season. The man with the white shirt is the man who had the idea for the program, and he's the producer. And then Rumi is looking over toward the camera, and he's been playing Jesus in the film.
I see.
And cast and crew of The Chosen host premiere screening in the Vatican. So that's the first point I wanted to bring to your attention, that this film effort is bringing Catholics and Protestants, Catholics and evangelicals together, and the Vatican hosted them, gave them a lot of attention and time on Monday, and then they also saw the Pope during the general audience. So on Monday, June 23rd, the cast and crew of The Chosen TV series made a special appearance in Rome for a press conference during their break from filming in Matera, Italy. Now, Matera is where Mel Gibson shot The Passion of the Christ in 2003 and into 2004. And it's what all of us think Italy, it's what all of us think Jerusalem looks like, because we've seen it in these films.
Well, I hear that Mel Gibson is coming to Andalusia, Robert. He's coming to Andalusia to do to shoot the Resurrection, the new movie that he's doing in Christ.
Okay, well then I think you'll have a chance then to say hello.
I hope so. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, it had been reported that he was going to go back to Matera and also use Cinecittà here in Rome this August. But I guess maybe they made a change, if what you're hearing is true.
Well, we'll see. Gibson is elusive. You never know where he is and where he's going to pop up and what he's going to do and say. That's part of his personality. It is his persona. That's it.
So castmates Jonathan Rumi and others, and series creator Dallas Jenkins discuss the film's 5th season, which will deal with the Passion and what it means to the entirety of the show. And it's considered now currently one of the top 10 shows for viewership on Amazon Prime Video. So a lot of interest in the life of Christ. And this is sort of, in my mind, dovetailing with a kind of exhaustion in secular culture, which is being mirrored to some degree in the exhaustion of the effort in the church to embrace secular culture, or at least open to secular culture. And among the themes that are interesting to me now are the number of converts that are coming into the church. Adult baptisms in France this year were up sharply. And maybe the election of this new Pope, Leo XIV, is also, in a sense, a turn away from an agenda that went on for 60 years. And we'll be watching closely to what extent this new Pope, who's now been in office for a month and a half, will try to continue as much as he can what's been done effectively in the past, but make changes in order to make a clean break, as it were, with a direction that was taking us into a more secular and not ecclesial.
From your lips to God's ears.
Okay. And so here's this news yesterday, the press office. It's actually the second press office. The press office up near St. Peter's Square is also available, but this was opened for a couple of years while they did renewal in that.
And
office.
where's this press office located?
Close to the beginning of Via della Conciliazione,
Oh.
Via del Ospedale, which is the first street on your left as you come
Ospedale
up.
dello Spirito Santo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so the cast was up there answering questions, and this is them right there in the middle of Via della Conciliazione. So they've come to Rome, and it caused these reflections on my part that a kind of Christocentric return to the study of Christ, his life, his mission, what he accomplished, and how that changes everything. It's interesting that the church is also got a lot of people saying that's the direction we too should take, turn back to Christ.
Well, you would imagine so. You would imagine that the church would say, let's turn back to Christ. And he's its whole foundation, its whole purpose. Yes, I would hope so.
Well, the problem is that sometimes you feel he grows distant, and your work should be simply carrying out some type of activity in the world, and being one more organization to help the poor, to help the downtrodden, and you lose the central meaning of the church, and you become another, what they call NGO, another non-governmental organization.
I would say without hesitation today that the majority of religious that I know or that I knew are doing exactly that. They call it social justice, but it is really void of Christ. I don't think it's altogether void of God, but of Christ and Christianity and of our spirituality. It's about helping the poor, helping the homeless, which is all good and proper. We understand that, but it should be done. Everything should be done in the name of Christ Jesus. Everything. Otherwise, what service? What purpose are we serving? We're just a ploy for the government to get funds out. Yeah.
In that regard, the Pope Leo XIV did something extraordinary this past Sunday, which was Corpus Christi is really the Thursday prior, but it's transferred to Sunday in many places. And it was the feast of Corpus Christi in the.
Was it also transferred to Sunday in Italy?
Well, he did the walk from St. John Lateran all the way down the Via Merulana,
right,
all the way up to St. Mary Major, and it took at least half an hour. And he walked himself. He's 69 years old, and some of the cardinals walked with him. The street was blocked. It was an enormous procession. He held the Eucharist above him without any assistance. He didn't take the Pope mobile, and there were crowds on the sidewalk on both sides. And I just thought the bringing of the Eucharistic Jesus into the center of Rome, reminding us of processions, reminding us of the kingship of Christ, is something that we don't do so much. I guess they still do it in Spain, and we used to do it in America, but it's
well. That was my question, Robert. Was it on Thursday or Sunday? This procession with the Pope.
This was on Sunday.
Oh, it took place on Sunday. So they've moved it to Sunday. Here in Spain, it's done on Thursday, and it's also a national holiday, so that people are free to attend Mass if that's what they wish to do, and the processions are multiple.
So the question I'm asking you is the marginalization of the church and also of Christ seems to be the secularizing project of the Western elites over the last century or 2 centuries. So how do we understand where we are in 2025 in the course of this process, and what are the signs of hope and some of the questions that remain open?
It's a good question. I think I would go one step further. Not only has the world given, pardon the redundancy, a secular spin on everything and taken away religious attitudes, demolished many of them, reduced the majority, but the church has helped the world to do that in the last 60 years. When the Second Vatican Council began talking about understanding the world we live in and adapting a little bit more to where the world is, and the language that the world has, where man is standing, and try to communicate with him today in his own language, his own property, his own way. We also gave up on a lot of our own religiosity to do that. We turned secular. The church has turned secular. Therefore, the church's mission has diminished an awful lot. You brought up something, its mission, yes, certainly its impact. Certainly the impact of which has diminished much. You brought up something at the very beginning. You said there are more people converting to Catholicism than ever. I think it's not ever, but for at least the last 50 years. That's true. What's also true is that a great number of them, a great percentage of those who have converted to Catholicism have converted to traditional Catholicism, not just through RCIA in parishes, but to traditional Catholicism. And then there's something a little bit shocking. Here's the follow-up to that statistic. For every one person who has converted to Catholicism, we're talking Protestants, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, or as what Chesterton used to call anything Aryans, becoming Catholic, we have lost 8 to 9 people. we've lost Catholics, right? Now, this is a real problem. This is a real problem. I'm very glad we're high in conversion. That only means that Protestants and Orthodox, what have you, are not getting as many converts as we are. But it doesn't mean that we're holding the line as far as Christianity is concerned. We have a lot of bleeding going on, an awful lot of it. We're losing tremendous amounts of people and a tremendous amount of influence on the world that we want to be changing, be communicating with and changing. So it's not all so rosy. There are a lot of caveats. I think this Pope has a tremendous challenge before him, because he's finding a church so divided, and it has to be put back together again. It must be. Otherwise it stops being the church. This lack of unity is not Christian. It's not Catholic. It's not godly. It's diabolical. The lack of unity is diabolical, and that's what has to be addressed today.
Okay. You've actually touched on something that came up in a conversation I had with a cardinal here in Rome 9 days ago when I had a meeting, and I said, "What do you think I can do that could be of assistance in this time?" And he said, "The most important single thing you could do is try to keep the traditional Catholics and the more sort of vanilla Catholics together, and to have a mutual enrichment. If there is any fanaticism on the part of the more traditional, then try to engage and diminish that. But if there's any lukewarmness and departure from Catholic teaching in the great sort of mass at the center of the church, try to inspire that once again with the elements of tradition." And I said, "Well, that seems an impossible task."
Certainly something incredible to bite off, isn't it? Yes.
I mean, so I've been thinking on this question for 9 straight days, Father, and I'm thinking I should have some type of a letter where I describe it, and then you and I should engage in some effort and perhaps even bring 1 or 2 other people on with us, because I think it's the central question. And I was told that that is the question that is most important right now to the Holy Father.
Oh, I believe you're right. I believe if it isn't the most important question on his mind, it should be. Let me put it that way, because it's real. It's real and it's growing. I think that would be a great idea. You know what would be, if you could find the right people, it might be interesting to have some people who are fallen away Catholics, maybe one at least, a good fallen away Catholic, and to get the reasons why. Somebody who can explain why, other than just laziness.
I mean, really, if you look at something like Ireland, which was 100% Catholic, and now it's got empty churches. There's still many wonderful Irish Catholic
to be sure
people. Sure, but
to be sure.
The secularization process was so. It started with some of the writers, James Joyce and the others, who said they couldn't just follow the rules of the catechism and the sort of what they described as manualistic treatment of human life, where every decision is sort of checked with a kind of checklist of sins. And we had the famous Irish guilt. So, but as it slowly unraveled, and as the Church in the Second Vatican Council threw open the doors toward the world, we no longer have a danger really of manualistic Catholicism, or what I mean is a kind of it's a way of living which isn't animated just by one's deep and abiding love of God and of Christ, but by a certain fixation on a number of points inside a catechism or a canon law manual. And this is particularly a danger, I think, for the religious, in a sense, if you follow what I'm saying.
I am. Let me put it this way, see if you agree with this. I'm going to use the word canned, as in to can a product. We grew up, we had catechism, and I'm talking about the church until 1965, right? They were canned answers to every question. They were prepared, done, packaged, sealed. That's it, in a can. You had the answer. Suddenly, we were asked to think outside that realm. We were invited to think outside the can, if you will, to get an idea. How does this truth apply to this man or to this woman? How is it applicable the same way? That's where we got lost in the weeds. And so that we respected the man or the woman in question, we absolutely pushed that canned answer off to the side and told them to make up their own answer. This is where we are, and that's where we've lost it. There has to be a marriage. There has to be some marriage between the truth and the situation ethics. They talk. I'm getting a lot of things thrown in here, and it might sound confusing to people. During the late 60s, a thing called situation ethics arose, and situation ethics basically simply said, you have to what was right, what is right for that particular moment in time. Not right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. What's the right thing to have done in these circumstances? Or what's the on-wrong thing to do, right? They're trying to get rid of guilt also. Well, it left us without any moral compass. It left us without any moral direction. So that we finally came down to, for the longest time during the 70s, 80s, even up to today, we don't know what's right. We don't know what's wrong. A lot of confusion is still there. What I'm trying to say, I guess, is we helped cause the confusion. I wish we would do something now to help uncause it, to bring good. We've had a period of reflection that's gone on for 50 years, a period of experimentation. The experimentation was supposed to be over years ago. It's been going on. It's now time to come back to some real answers. I thought I'm doing a program here in Spain with a fantastic priest. What a remarkable man. We've become very good friends. Brilliant man. We're doing a program on using the catechism of Bishop Schneider. All right, so we did a whole program during Lent using his catechism, and now we're going to do another program, a three-part program on the Blessed Mother, leading up to the Assumption. What I'm trying to say is that catechism that he wrote is excellent. It's just excellent. It gives you the answer to any question. It's not pounding anything into your head. It's not forcing anything. It's simply saying this is what it is. And the citations, biblical citations, are right there to be used. And it's a great, great, great help. I wish people would be catechized in that sense. Not like we had to memorize all of those things for First Holy Communion. Those were wonderful. And that was right to do at that time as children. But when you grow up, you need a little bit more amplitude, just a little bit more. And that catechism, and even the catechism of the Catholic Church, I take issue with it on a few things. But it's good. It's good. It's a new approach. It's trying to give to modern man the answers without pushing him and shoving him into a corner. The problem is that modern man can live without it. This is the problem. He thinks he can. He thinks he can. And he's content to live without it. This is the problem. So how do you get this message across that he could be living life to the fullest if he would embrace the real truth. A lot of questions come up here. A lot of questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Bishop Schneider. I've spent time with him. I've met him here in Rome and also in America. And he comes from that amazing family background where he was a Volga German Catholic from a German community that had been removed or come into Russia and then had been removed by Stalin. And he lived in his childhood in the Soviet Union, although he later went back to Germany. So he had a tremendous personal experience of the faith being persecuted by communism. And at the same time,
you know, Robert, that the people who have suffered to any degree, suffered for the faith, or suffered for anyone or anything that they love, really know it, and they know it deeply. He knows it deeply. But I'm just saying, through his experience, his vivential experience, he wrote this catechism, which is a treasury. It really is a treasury, and I'm promoting it everywhere I can to any Catholic. It's not just traditionalists or progressives. That's not just any Catholic who's a thinking man or woman. It's very good, very good. And it's what we need because we're lost. We've been lost for over half a century. There is no direction, really. And this gives a good direction.
Okay, I think that's the issue, really. There's some comments that have come up, and I have seen some I didn't see until just now. I go back a few minutes here where Mark De Laurentiis, you say, define fanaticism among traditional Catholics. And I didn't perhaps... if you use one phrase, you're not really giving a complete picture. But I don't even mean that it exists. I only would mean if there were a fixation on certain points and a kind of conspiratorial mentality, but I even have that mentality myself at times, because I too think there was a kind of Freemasonic, humanistic force, which is what we've talked about with the report Gagnon was preparing in the 1970s.
That's right. That's right.
And and Cardinal Ratzinger once told me that this was the greatest single enemy of the church. They wanted to come into the church and transform the church from the inside so that there would still be some kind of a structure called the Roman Catholic Church, but it would lose its essential nature.
But that's it. Pope Benedict himself told you this.
Yes,
right? This is what I'm saying. Yes, it is. It's very real. It's very real. So we shouldn't be naive. Here's the thing that this man or woman that I believe is protesting with the use of the word fanaticism. I have been working with people for years now, since the Wuhan flu. Since the Wuhan flu closed all of our churches.
2020. Yeah.
I was one of the few priests that I know who brought the Blessed Sacrament to people who were dying, who gave last rites to people who were dying. None of the other priests would go. No one was saying Mass for 2 years. There were no Masses being said. This is incredible. I said Mass every day, and people came to Mass. And people grew in their faith, a lot of them, which was wonderful. But this idea of fanaticism, I've not met a fanatic. I haven't met a fanatic. I met a couple in Mexico, but they were deranged individuals. There was something the matter with them mentally. They had some sort of breakdown years ago. But this fanaticism, that you believe something seriously, doesn't make you a fanatic. What makes you a fanatic is when you want to kill for what it is, and you're not even sure of what it is yourself. That's fanaticism, right? But I haven't met fanatics. I've met people who are very strong in their faith, thank God, and I admire them. But I haven't met that. Another thing, and I'd like to say this, and I just had this discussion with someone, a few people just the other day. Pope Francis, on a number of occasions, told priests to stop changing the confessional or to not make the confessional a torture chamber. What is he talking about? I have never had a bad experience in a confessional in my life. I've only had good experiences. I've never met a priest who's screaming and trying to get me feeling guilt of it. Never had that. And I don't know that anyone has ever told me that he or she has had that. They speak about it in a general, oh, you remember this used to be that. I said, did it ever happen to you? Well, no, but I've heard. Everybody's heard stories, but it's never happened to anybody I know. We don't do that. I've never done it as a priest. No other priest does. I don't know what he's talking about. But there was an attempt on his part many times to change anything that had to do with the formalities of Catholicism, the sacraments, reception, to kind of poo-poo it a little bit. Well, that's wrong too. It was very wrong. There's a lot of good things that are still waiting to be rediscovered, Robert. And I hope and pray that this Pope is the man to do that. He's got quite a task in front of him.
Yeah, I think he definitely is taking the measure of the task right now in these days. Of course, his life is a round of meetings and speeches. Some of the speeches may already have been prepared for the prior Pope, because the Curia, as you know, is a large body of officials who are working.
There are other words I could use for it, but yes, officials is good. There's the saying, popes come and go, the Curia remains.
Yeah.
Right? Yep.
So some things that he may have read in a speech may not, he has to take responsibility for it, but they may even have been prepared during the winter for events this spring. We also have going on in Rome the Jubilee of 2025, every 25 years. And they filled it with Jubilee of the young, Jubilee of the old, Jubilee of the middle-aged. And they have an event that he has to preside over just about every week. Last week, it was the new movements in the church. And people came to St. Peter's Square, and he talked about that. And all of this, it means that he's trying to get a grasp on something that he was always concerned about, which is how the church can be lived. And he was a bishop in Peru. He was baptizing people. He was the head of the Augustinian order, which is an order that studies a great deal and has missions everywhere around the world. How can it be that the church is losing millions of people, tens of millions? How can it be that in Western countries, people don't even often baptize their children? Sometimes they don't get married. They don't get married at all. In other words, a great de-Catholicization has occurred. And you still see it existing in Italy with the procession we saw on Sunday, where he really almost gave a mystical sense of walking with Christ down that street through the center of Rome. And yet, so much of our lives are secularized, step by step by step. It wasn't the church itself that did it. We did it with, opening for business on Sunday, taking away the idea of Sunday as a day of rest, and then the laws, all the laws changed, and all the technology changed with regard to marriage, with regard to the family, with regard to
yes, technology. But you're right, Robert. You're right. It wasn't the church that did that, but it was the church, and I lived through it, and so did you. It was the church that did not put up too much of a fight. So when all these things were happening.
Okay, so this is precisely the point, and I'm going to come back to you, probably not even on this program, but with some emails and texts. But Mark de Laurentiis says, does it mean that we're so fanatic that we actually believe that Jesus Christ exists in the tabernacle and we should treat him as the King of Kings? Is that fanatical? No, it's not.
Well, if it is, it's simply Catholic.
Yeah.
It might sound fanatical to an unbelieving world, but it's a centrally Catholic message. It's a dogma of our faith that we believe. It's a dogma of our faith that I've often said this, I would love to die defending.
Well, let's make that come true then.
You just bring your sword the next time you go to mass and you'll be all set. I so firmly believe in that. And it's one thing that we, the church, this is exactly what I'm talking about. We, the Catholic Church, have done our best to destroy. We've done our best to destroy that. We have people talking in church, singing, playing balloon masses, clown masses, this, that, and the other thing. We've taken the Blessed Sacrament out of the center and put it off to one side, if indeed even there. We've done this ourselves. The world hasn't done this to us. We did it. We did it participating very actively in the world's lack of faith. And
okay,
we get to the point where another survey, this is just last year, said that 7 out of 10 Catholics no longer believe in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Well, yeah, why would they? They see how their priests are treating the Eucharist. They see the liturgy. They see what's going on. And whether you believe or not, you'll come out not believing. Whether you believe or not when you go in is one thing, but you'll come out not believing the same way. It'll be lessened because the most important thing is the horizontal, not the vertical. And they've done this to our liturgy. They've done this to our prayer life. They've done this to our faith. And this is, I lay directly at the door of the priests, bishops, cardinals, and occasionally a pope, because they've said nothing. They've said nothing. They've not addressed these things for years. And when they tried to, poor Pope Benedict, to save his life and save his mind, had to resign. You know, when he tried to reform.
I should explain to listeners that there were people who hated Pope Benedict, people in Rome and in the Curia. They said he was reversing all the progress that had been made in this long effort to horizontalize the church. And
rather than seeing the damage that has been done, and finally an intelligent, brilliant, not just intelligent, Ratzinger was brilliant. He was a brilliant philosopher and theologian. A brilliant man came along and said, just a minute, we have to stop the bleeding. We have to stop the bleeding. And he moved to do that and to reinforce the faith. My goodness, was he hated. And you're right to bring that up, Robert. He was hated.
Well, I do have to come to the very dangerous, controversial point now, at which Brian Delaney has mentioned in the chat. He says, fanaticism as in sede vacantism. Now, there's a lot that needs to be said in this matter, and we could easily take hours, but it does appear that for 60 years, the church embraced a type of humanistic side of the faith, let's call it, and spoke about the way of the church being the way of man. And Paul VI, John Paul I seems to have been wishing in some way to confront some of the problems, and he lasted 33 days, and it's been a matter of our discussion on a number of occasions, whether it was foul play or simply some physical problem that was pushed to its limit by some battles that he faced. Right.
Just remember your friend and mine, His Eminence Cardinal Gagnon. His answer to me when I asked when was the Pope killed 2 days after he died, Gagnon said to me, and I'll never forget it, his exact words were, "There are many ways to kill a man."
Okay. So, but that may be also in some way why we don't mean or need to be fanatical. And Gagnon was not fanatical. We don't have to say we know for sure, if we don't know it, that someone came in and slipped poison into his nighttime medicine. We don't have to make things up, but we can confront everything. And in a sense, Gagnon is a type of model in that. And theoretically, if you and I can continue, we could also be trying to explain how these things occurred without throwing out everything and condemning everything. But that is why I'm saying this sedevacantism question is a profound one, because even at the chair of Peter at times, we seem to have found people who were hesitating to fully take on these great challenges to the church, as if they too were influenced or under some sort of pressure or blackmail or something else. So what do you think about that? Did the church go astray 60 years ago, and has everything since been somehow under a shadow?
I think the church, here's where I differ from a lot of people, I suppose. I believe that Pope John the 23rd and Pope Paul the 6th, I believe their intentions were good. Now, there are people who will tell you, they will swear that their intentions were malevolent. I don't believe that. I believe they were good. I believe that a little bit of fresh air in the church was needed. I remember those days in past history. We talked about them with the fond memories, but not everything was wonderful. Okay, not everything was wonderful. Religious life, for example, was almost it drove some people absolutely crazy to try to live that perfection. It really did. It was very, very difficult. You couldn't read newspapers. You couldn't watch the television. You couldn't see the news. You had to live in your own world. And this was going on in the 1950s and 1960s. You know, they had to get permission in a house of religious men and women. You had to have permission to watch the news on television, see what was happening in Vietnam. A lot of those things had to change. There was a certain openness to the world that was required by a Catholic to be a responsible Catholic. What became impossible was the more that it went on, the more the church gave in. Like it's like living with a puer eterno, an eternal teenager that never really grows up and just give me. And the parents give up trying to fight, and they just give in to everything. This was what happened. But I believe the intention of both John the 23rd and Paul the 6th were good intentions. I don't believe they were evil people. I don't believe that. There are people who say that today, but I don't think they know what they're talking about. I really don't. However, things got out of control, very much got out of control, and they did not know how to reel things back in. Paul VI had no idea what to do. He just didn't. When he called for Gagnon to do that investigation, he was at wit's end. He really was. He was almost at the end of his own life, but he just did not know what else to do. And things were getting very serious. You're talking about the I'm not going to get back into into my book, The Murder in the 33rd Degree. I don't mean to get to that. We've already talked about it. But everything was out of whack. Everything was out of whack. And there was no control. Things were out of control. Put it that way. Well, that's when when I say people, lay people mostly, but also clerics, began to think, is anybody in the captain's seat? Is Rome aware of what's happening? And if Rome is aware, how can they continue letting it happen? This is when people began losing their faith in authority in the church. The people who had been faithful to authority, defending it, when they would defend it, they would find themselves alone. Even the authority they were defending wouldn't defend them. This is where people started saying there's something very wrong here. And that's where the sedevacantism came in. People could not believe that Paul VI was a real pope who would permit what was being permitted. They couldn't believe this. That's the problem. It's the same thing that happened during the last 12 and a half years, Robert. You and I both know that. I know people who have left the church completely because of Pope Francis.
Right.
Things he said, they said, that can't be a pope. A pope wouldn't say that. This is common sense, people. Well, they made their decision. Are they fanatics because of that? I don't know. You judge. I think I know a number of people who went through that whole phase of questioning whether the papacy is even still alive, or did it somehow get off track, and they just walked away from the whole thing. Are they fanatics? I don't know.
Well,
but they wanted to keep a faith, and they did. So these are complicated messes. Here we've got another problem, and let me give you this and see what you think of this. I'll put it this way: if the present Pope Leo XIV, does not address the question of the Latin Mass, he stands to lose many millions more.
Yes,
in the church.
This is a key question.
This is really true. It's really true. It's really true. I'm telling you, millions are going to walk away from it, and they're not going to walk away from it. What they're going to claim is, we are the church. They are not. Then you're going to push into a radical situation.
Yeah.
But this is critical. I don't know if he knows this. I really don't know that he's aware of it, because a lot of people in the Vatican would like him not to be aware of it. To just say, this is a hiccup, we can get rid of it. No, you can't. You're talking about losing millions of people, and millions of young people with young families. This is terrible. So he has a lot on his plate. I wish he would, to be honest with you, Robert, I wish he wasn't listening to exactly who he's listening to. He's surrounded by a lot of people I don't trust, and a lot of people don't trust. I wish he would be his own man, because I see a man who's intelligent. I see a man who's deep. He has a profundity. He has a deep faith. I sense it. He's measured. His words are so measured, not like me. I speak my mind right off the top of my head. That's it. And he thinks things over. I can see it 2 and 3 times before he would say anything. And maybe he still wouldn't say anything then. He ponders. He's a ponderoso. He's a man who ponders things and things. He's got it. He's got what's necessary to be an outstanding pope. I'm just afraid of the appointments that he's making. They're not making any sense. They're not good. I wish he would be more independent. Call in people that he really learned to trust. Anyway, that's where we're at today, and I'm really concerned that the church is going to lose millions more if this question of the traditional Latin Mass, which was re-guaranteed by Pope Benedict, and then so brutally taken away. If it's not brought back, we're going to lose something. And the last time, I'll finish with this. I'm kind of monopolizing things here. I'm sorry for that. But last week we brought up a point, and we both agreed on it. And this is very dear to the heart of His Holiness, the Pope. He wants ecumenism, especially with the East. Well, if you want ecumenism, Holy Father, with the East, why don't you present at least that in part you have maintained the ancient ritual of the Mass that we've always had, because they have maintained the ritual of the Mass that they've always had, the liturgy, and are still saying it. At least that we would have in common. Again, if you think, Holy Father, or anyone around you thinks that you're going to get the Orthodox excited about balloon masses or clown masses or motorcycle masses or hula masses, you've got another thing coming. They want our tradition. They respect our tradition. The ones who don't respect our tradition, unfortunately, are us, is Rome. That's a big question, and it's really got to be answered. And I would hope sooner than later, Robert. Amen. I'll stop talking for a moment.
Well, we have a comment from Tony Javille. Dear friends, he's writing to all of us, Father.
I hope so. Up to now he is. Let's see where it goes.
I think he was inspired. May no adversity paralyze you. Be afraid neither of the world, nor of the future, nor of your own weakness. Pretty good.
Sounds like Saint Teresa of Avila.
Well,
But I don't think. Are you afraid, Robert? I'm not afraid. I'm very concerned.
Well,
I'm very concerned for so many people who have lost the way. They've lost themselves.
Well, I don't think afraid is the right word, except I'm sad that there will be people whose families break up and whose children are aborted, and there's all these miseries that occur and all these abominations. The world is drenched in blood and misery, where the church is the mother and the safe space that returns, forgives, teaches, guides, and the weakness of the church means that she can't fulfill that function. Churches are closing. People walk past them and say, "There's nothing here for me."
Yeah, it saddens. It saddens the heart. It saddens the heart.
Now, in terms of the liturgical question, I think that's the right answer. I think Benedict came up with a solution. He said the old Mass can never be condemned. It was used for centuries by all the members of the church, from simple shepherds who attended Mass in the fields of France to popes in Rome, and it's
to soldiers giving their lives on the battlefield. That Mass was celebrated on the front ends of jeeps, on rocks, on stones, in the Mexican Revolution, out in the fields. It's just it's so holy to us. To just discard it is almost blasphemous. It is blasphemous. It's sacrilege.
So he at least wanted to keep a space for it. He said it can be allowed to every priest everywhere in the world. That was reversed by Francis when he said everyone has to get permission of their bishop. Now, that can also be reversed in about 10 minutes by Pope Leo. But I wanted to go into one reason why people are concerned about these liturgies is that they did seem to allow all sorts of errors and misunderstandings to creep in that the old Mass prevented by its more austere and rigorous and ancient formalism. The new Mass, I remember, and I've said this before, that the priest came out and he was not wearing any shoes. I was the altar boy, and I was thinking, but he just wanted to be more casual. That's probably the number one word for America. And I had a conversation once with the late...
Excuse me. He wasn't wearing any shoes? What do you mean?
Yeah, he celebrated Mass in his socks, in his stocking feet.
I did that once in Japan. I couldn't believe it. I was in Nagoya, and I went to the cathedral to say Mass, and I had to take off my shoes. Have you ever been in Japan?
No, I haven't. But
Robert, it's amazing. On the steps of the cathedral, there were 500 pairs of shoes outside on the steps. And nobody stole anybody's shoes. It was just, that was it. And you didn't go into church with shoes. You just didn't. I felt very strange. I offered Mass in my socks. Yes. But yeah, I thought you meant that he offered Mass barefoot.
No.
But anyway, it was quite an experience. It was an experience, that whole thing of humility.
Okay. So I would go back to another point I wanted to make, and there's a lot of points I never make because the minutes go by. But this one, we have evidence that's irrefutable from some of the members of the commission that worked to write and propose the structure of the new Mass and the new prayers under the direction of Archbishop Annibale Bugnini. And what we were told in a book by Louis Boyer is that they were in committee meetings and Bugnini would say, Pope Paul VI is very strong on this point. He really would like you to find a way to include this in the liturgy or to make this change or alteration. And they said, oh, he really does. And he would say, yes. And Bouillet says that, of course, he doesn't actually have a videotape of Bugnini doing this, but Bugnini went to Paul VI, and Paul VI, on some occasion, said to a member of the committee that Bugnini came and told me that all of you were 100% in agreement that you wanted this, even though I had my doubts about it. And
Robert,
then
let me just correct you here. Louis Bouillet himself had an audience with Paul VI. I spoke to Bouillet. He gave a conference to the Ignatius Institute at the University of San Francisco when he wrote his book, his memoirs, in which he said, Annibale Bugnini was a man bereft of culture and of basic honesty. Right? He was a dishonest man, and it was Louis Bouillet himself who, in a conversation with Pope Paul years later, found out that everything that the committee would be saying X, Bugnini would present it to the Pope as Y. In other words, whatever Bugnini wanted, he got. He would go back and tell the committee, the Pope said absolutely not. And then he would say to the Pope, well, Holy Father, if you don't like it, the Pope would say no. He said, well, but the committee, these are 10 very well-educated men putting all this together. They're insisting on this. You've got Bugnini playing that game for years. When the two cardinals, Staffa and Oddi, went to go present documentation about his affiliation with Freemasonry, it was believed credible, and they got rid of him immediately. But the damage that was done lingers today.
But the reason to go through this one more time is to say, if you try to go back to see where the accident was caused, whether there was ice on the road or someone was drinking, and you try to get an explanation of what caused this problem, this accident, if you've got evidence that it wasn't just the Holy Spirit, but it was a cobbling together in a mentality that was influenced by other interests, you have the right then to say, let's do it better this time. Let's review everything one more time, and let's go back to the old liturgy and make it, we know that was a sound and reverent liturgy.
Or at least give the opportunity to those Catholics who want it to have it.
Right.
Okay. So what great disturbance in heaven would that cause? Are you kidding me?
The thing that was then told to Pope Francis, and we're almost at the end of the program, but Pope Francis also was told things that may not have been true. And he did a survey of bishops, and someone came and said, the bishops are all against these little groups that go to the old mass. And very few bishops had said that. Many bishops, in fact, and Diane Montagna, very good journalist.
That's right.
Somehow read some of these reports herself. And the bishop says, no, these are some of the best people in my parish.
And a great number of bishops had never been asked.
So Francis, in the actual document where he says, why am I doing this? It's because the bishops are asking me to take action in something that's dividing the church. So if it's proven that was under false pretenses, this Pope could say there were enemies that sowed some false ideas that influenced the thinking of my predecessor, and I can make a change which he himself would have made if he had known the things that I know, something like that. So he doesn't have to. And this is why the delicate process, it could be that someone is a sedevacantist and says every one of these popes has to be rejected as non-Catholic. But if you do that, the turmoil and the damage to people's sense of their lives, of the local parish, St. Leo's or St. Mary's or St. Patrick's,
Yes.
where they had their children baptized, etc. If people are going to get to the point of thinking every sacrament was invalid, and I think some people believe that, as I've reflected on it, it seems that God would somehow have protected us against that. I have
Well,
to
I
believe.
think God can show his benevolence and his great love for the church by moving a few hearts in Rome to bring all of these things back again. Because if they are brought back, if permission is granted again, you will see a drop in sedevacantism. You'll see a drop because people want to have a pope. They want to have a pope, but they want a pope that they can believe in.
Yeah. And the Pope could do that by also saying, I know you're concerned about some elections, you're concerned
Yes.
about
Yes.
some decisions taken, you're concerned about Freemasonic connections, and some of these things we can go through and get to the bottom, including
What a breeze, what a wind of fresh air that would be, Robert. That would be.
That's what we're looking for, and we're going to try to get the report of Gagnon out of the dusty.
Oh, that would be marvelous. That would be marvelous. That'd be a very good start.
And
Robert,
yes.
I'm off. We're running a little bit late. God bless you. Thank you. I think this was a good discussion. I hope it was anyway. I think so. God bless. See you next week.
Yes.